what is impressive about these tools these days that one couldn't even imagine like 5 years ago is that you can start from any point, in that you can have a conversation about some piece of code that you have already written and give it as an input. Basically, that would be the context, and say, oh, I want to optimize this particular part about this input, like I want to make it faster or have some other constraint on it. And then you start the conversation from there. It is very impressive how these tools can now add new lines of code without editing the previous lines. Like, it will not break the structure or anything, but it will just add that piece that maybe you were missing or that you wanted to get another perspective on.
How much do you go back and forth with ChatGPT? Like, just to give our viewers a bit of a feeling for what that might look like. Is that like Is it a conversation that spans, let's say, like 2 to 4 messages, or, are you like really stretching it and going deep into it? I know it depends on the use case, but generally speaking, when you're like diving into a new topic, new language, new package, whatever it might be, how long are your conversations right off the bat?
Yeah, often, it can be a very long conversation. And again, it's impressive that we're able to have these long conversations right now. Often it starts with just picking a library. So basically, there is a lot of choice out there. Choosing, it's a commitment. Every time you pick a library and then you include it in your base code, it's a commitment, because you're continue to use it at least for the next few months, and you need to maintain that code and read it over and over again. So maybe often I even ask these tools to basically give me like similar snippets, but using different libraries. And then I kind of compare them side by side and to see like which one has the right style for whatever it may mean, based on the context, and see whether that is something convenient to use. It's important though for the audience to kind of like, every time there is like a library that is being mentioned in code, to check that that library really exists. Because, sometimes it can happen that there is like, these models blend many different worlds in a way, like text worlds. And some of them may be pretty close to what you want, but some may not exist. So it's good to do like that first check that the library is there and it's maintained. And once you know that, then you can do a little bit of this experimentation, giving like easy tasks to each of the libraries to see which is the right one to pick.
Absolutely. I think that is huge, trust but verify. Like it's an excellent and very well educated and highly intelligent assistant, but it's still just an assistant. So, respect that kind of boundary. And I would also say, I remember like recently I had it generate a code snippet for me where it used the pill library inside of Python to interact with images, and it used an outdated version. And as soon as I fed it like the documentation to the updated version, it worked with that and it just updated it. But if I just took it at face value and included it into my app, then I ran into problems pretty quickly. So trust but verify.
And you can also ask follow-up questions. Again, follow-up questions are so important with these things. If there is any, aspect of the code that you really care about, then asking again on like, can you think about any sort of gaps in this code? Or if we're talking about things like authentication libraries or memory management in maybe like C and C++ programs, asking follow-up questions of like, how do you think this would work in a case where this and this happens? Just to sort of push the boundaries of what the model is supposed to do in this case is always good. And, it's a very natural question to ask, like, why wouldn't the tool do this on the first place? Like, why does it wait for me to ask that follow-up question? One needs to understand that, a lot of the knowledge that comes out of these models is always conditioned based on the prompt, based on the input that we're specifying. And if that is not part of the consideration on the first place, that knowledge will not be surfaced immediately. So you kind of have to have that condition there for that knowledge to appear. And that's what the follow-up question is doing, basically.
I would be curious, like for people that might have a lot of like software development experience, but they kind of shied away from using these tools, which, there's that group is surprisingly large, the people that just know like, I know what I'm doing. I have 20 years of experience. Like they might be interested in some of the AI use cases and they might use it here and there, but they're not a power user. They don't use it daily. Like, what would be a good way for a person like that to kind of start using it on maybe some of their older projects? What would be something where they could really see the power at work, to a person that is mostly ignorant to this technology and that maybe states that I know how to write code, I don't need an app to help me? Because surprisingly, that's an opinion that I encounter frequently.
Yeah, so, the root of that opinion comes sometimes from the fact that the current tools yet cannot get as an input the whole code, the whole code base in a way. And that is why people shy away from that, because they'll be like, well, you can suggest me some good things locally in this file, but you don't know all these other scripts and files that I've written. And so I just don't have the time to explain you the whole architecture of the app. And therefore I'm not going to use it at all. I do get that part, that it is still difficult for the tools to get the architecture of an app. But at the same time, there are some very good scenarios out there to enhance productivity on tasks that developers certainly can do, but maybe take a lot of time. Think about all the specification scripts that we have to write in YAML or in other markup languages that are really not that fun to write. They can be repetitive. They do share some structure, and what you really want is for something to generate this, and then you can double check it and see that everything is in place and move on to something that is more exciting.
Absolutely. And I love that you took this approach, because I have a very different answer to this, but I think both are equally as valuable. And that is exactly just replace the annoying parts. One would be, have an assistant that is going to go through everything you write and it's going to perfectly add comments, right? As simple as that. Yeah. You don't have to bother with that. And when you're handing it off to, your colleague, they're not going to be complaining anymore, because everything is perfectly commented out, and you don't have to spend, time at the end just making it readable for others, right? It can really help you do that. And I would encourage people to just start using it more and more, because it's only going to be more powerful. And I think once somebody gets even slightly comfortable, it just opens up a whole new world. And, once you start using it, I don't think you can go back.